What's up, everybody? It's your boy Prince here, and I'm about to discuss a very touchy topic for most people. Um, Basically about theism and atheism. Atheism in particular. As you can tell by the title of the video, I'm gonna explain to you why I am not an atheist. The first reason is very simple. I grew up in a Christian home. I've learned Christianity all my life. Um, at one point, I decided to become an agnostic theist, mainly because the main reason was because I was defeated by the fact that you can't really prove that God doesn't exist. Like I can't prove that God exists. I can't prove that Christianity is right. So I was defeated by that fact. So I was like, what's the point of being fully for one religion if that religion could be wrong, you know? But then eventually I started thinking about it. I did some research, watched some videos, and my faith got stronger again. And I realized that you know what? Christianity is the most plausible religion out there. Therefore, bada boom, it has to be true. It's a wishful premise, but that's what I'm going with it. So that's the first reason. The second reason I'm not an atheist is because um, atheists commit intellectual suicide, and they contradict themselves a lot. And I'm gonna give some examples as to why, and there's gonna be as like some points. This isn't really like to go into depth on atheism. I'm not an atheist. It's just, and I'm not speaking for all atheists. Just basically the common premise. Let's start with the Big Bang. Now, essentially, the Big Bang is the go-to thing for atheists and scientific skeptics. A lot of atheists would tell you, oh, well, you don't have to be a scientist to be an atheist, and that's true. But when you come down to the question of whether or not does God exist or where does your beliefs come from, atheists always tend to go to science. So it's kind of stupid to say that. Like, yeah, you're not like legally or documentedly, if that's a word, a scientist, yeah, but you do lean towards scientific evidence and beliefs rather than the religious side. So, yeah. So let's start with the Big Bang. The Big Bang is essentially it's this point in singularity where it collapsed upon itself and imploded, caused a big explosion, boom, there's the universe. I probably explained that wrong, but who gives a shit? That's basically what it is, right? It created all life, all matter, everything that we know that exists. It created. Now, I have no problem with the Big Bang. I actually do believe in the Big Bang. My problem is of how it started. I believe that the Big Bang was created by God, not just by itself. Now, here's my problem with the Big Bang and atheism. Well, of course, atheists and scientists, they believe that, the Big Bang, they created life. It wasn't God, it was the Big Bang. Then there's the obvious question of, who created the Big Bang, you know? Now, of course, they like to flip it on you. They like to be like, okay, well, who created God? That question doesn't make sense to me because you you're actually questioning the fact that my God was created. You can't create someone who's omnipotent. You can't create someone who's omnipresent. You just can't, you know? So for you to ask that question, I think that's very I would use the word stupid, but it ain't that stupid because I understand. I understand the premise. I understand that, we believe in a being that isn't created. So why can, scientists and atheists believe in something that um sorry, I got sinus. Why isn't that scientists can't believe in the same thing but only think with the Big Bang? Here's my problem with it though. My problem with the Big Bang, like I have no problem with you believing in that premise. My problem is that scientists always says that science has to prove everything. Science has to be scientifically proven, it has to be logical, etc., etc. Now, for you to believe in something that was created from nothing, that doesn't really seem logical. Like atheists always looks at theists like, okay, well, you're you're not really a thinker. You're not really somebody who is, mentally there. You're not that person. And I'm like, hmm, but you believe that the world came to be from nothing. So I mean, how fair is that? So when I hear scientists use this argument, I or atheism uses type of, you know, back and forth argument, it makes me laugh. And then here's the other things about the Big Bang. For example, science says matter, mass, and energy cannot be created nor destroyed. And logic says something cannot come from nothing. That's just basic logic.
It is impossible to create something out of nothing.
For example, I have a turtle tank in the back there. You can't see it. I don't want to show you it because the room is dirty. But I have a turtle tank in the back there, and if that were to explode right here and then, I'm gonna be looking at a scientific explanation as to why it fucking exploded. I'm not gonna be thinking that it exploded out of nowhere. And that's the next thing. Things don't explode out of nowhere. There's always something that's happened to it. Whether you go to a molecular level, at an atomic level, a quark level, there's always gonna be a cause for it. So for scientists to just throw that out the window just for the Big Bang, just so they could have an argument as to why, or just so they could have a reason as to why things came to be, I think it's very contradictory. It doesn't make sense. You know. The third reason is scientific evidence. I don't believe that there's the scientific evidence that God doesn't exist. I don't believe that. I believe the scientific evidence shows that God does exist, just like Newton believed. But I like to get into two things underneath this topic. The premise that because you're a religious believer, you're not really a thinker. You're not really in touch with reality, and that's not true. Because here's where here's where atheists contradict themselves again, or well, scientists, because there's still gonna be somebody in the comments. Oh, atheism! You don't have to be an atheist to be. I mean, you don't have to be a scientist to be an atheist, etc., etc. Duh, I know that, but I explained it at the beginning of the video. The contradiction is that science doesn't prove everything. There's a lot of things that science can't prove, and there's a lot of things that we don't know when it comes to science and our universe. Example would be consciousness. How many neurons do we have to lose in order to lose self-consciousness? Albatrosses. There's a lot of things we don't know about the ocean. There's a lot of things that science can't prove. You can't even prove that fucking Hitler existed, man. You can't even prove that. Like, you can't prove that someone existed. You only have the history record of these types of people. And of course, you might have DNA samples, but that doesn't really truly tell you what Hitler did, and if he even fucking existed. It could have been a different person. Who knows? So there's a lot of things. Now, of course, I could list the list could go on and so forth. You could even look it up yourself. There's a lot of things that we don't know in terms of science, and a lot of things that science can't prove. Fuck, they even found evidence of a ninth planet in our solar system, but we can't find it. We have a ninth planet, but we can't find it. Wow, pigeons could find their way home, but we don't even know why. Wow. There's a lot of things we don't know. There's a lot of things we don't know. When people be like, okay, well, there's no scientific evidence that there's no big bearded man in the sky. First of all, you can't prove a deity. All right, God is omnipotent and omnipresent. You know, like I always, this is my go-to God of the gaps. If you know what God of the gaps is, it's basically the thing that religious people used back in the day to explain stuff that we know today. For example, how did a person get healed from sickness? Oh, God did it. Well, today we have penicillin. I use God in the gaps because indirectly I believe God created everything, but not in a sense that you know, to explain something I don't know. I use science to explain something I don't know. Um, but me saying my version of God in the gaps, I'm basically saying that because God is omnipotent, you can't really question him. That's basically my God of the gaps. And here's the reason why is because we try to put logic to a being who defies logic. If we putting the premise out there that God exists, then you have to consider the, especially the Christian God, because that's who basically the go-to religious leader is, or the go-to attack for atheism. The Christian God. If we have the premise that the Christian God exists, then you should also take in consideration that he's omnipotent, he's omnipresent, and you can't really do much against that. Like, there's some people out there who would generally believe that they could survive hell, or that they could actually go up to God and try to fight him. Like, really, really, you're just a model compared to someone who is way beyond this universe, or even any dimensional plane you could think of. Like, he's beyond time. Like, you can't defeat someone like that. You can't comprehend the pain that that person can inflict on you. Now, I'm not gonna get into the conversation of whether or not God is loving, truly loving or not. I believe he is truly loving, and I could get into that in a later video, but this is just about why I'm not an atheist right now. So for people to actually try to put logic to it, it be like, oh, there's no scientific evidence that God exists. It's like, wow, really? But now, on to the second point underneath this third reason, is the fact that those who are religious aren't really they aren't really thinkers. I find that to be very stupid. Here's the reason why I find that to be stupid. I find it to be stupid because there's plenty scientific minds out there who are actually theists. There's plenty scientific people who actually make the foundation as science as we know it, who are theists. For example, you got Isaac Newton, Pascal, fucking Einstein. How could you forget Einstein? Michio Kaku. You got so much people who are fucking, they are scientists, they are thinkers, but they come to the conclusion, John Lennox, he's more of a mathematician, but same thing, they're still smart. I don't mean it as an insult, I just mean it as in, you know, because I said specifically scientists, but it's the same thing. But yeah, that proves you wrong right out the gate. So the premise that you can't be religious or you can't be a theist and cannot be an intellectual or smart is wrong. I mean, look at Jordan Peterson. He's one of them as well, you know? So that premise is so stupid that they love to use it for religious people. Oh, religious people, you are brain dead sheep and you're blinded. But they don't use it. They don't use it for the people who are actually scientists. They don't use it against them. So I find it to be very hypocritical, contradictory, whatever you want to call it. I find it to be very weird, in a sense. And to address that sheep thing, it's amazing how the entire population, or well, not population, the majority of the population are theists, are Christians, and a small majority are atheists. Like, you think I'm usually the person who's like just because the majority says it doesn't mean it's true, and that's true, but I've always said you should take it into consideration instead of just completely knocking it off. Like, there's a reason why a bunch of people are theists. There's a reason why a bunch of people are Christians. It can't just be that everyone's sheep, blinded, or everybody is brainwashed. It makes no sense. You know? I'm not brainwashed. I told you before, you know, I changed. I was kind of agnostic at one point, you know. I was questioning my own beliefs, but then I came back. So not all of us are sheep. Not all of us have some weird dumbass reason why we believe in God. Mainly because we have actual evidence to believe in God. God has actually done something in our lives to make us believe. So I don't think that we're just automatically sheep. Atheists have more faith than theists. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. To be an atheist. Sorry, grammar check. Now, how do we define faith? Faith is having a strong belief in someone or something, or it's basically strong belief in religious doctrine without proof or anything like that. And it's true. It's it's true. It's true that that's what faith is. But atheists need to realize that you believe in something completely outrageous than what I believe in. I've already explained it. I already explained how it's completely absurd to believe in the Big Bang when you're an atheist. I just completely I just explained how us believing in an omnipotent being isn't really all that crazy, considering an omnipotent being can do anything that he wants to do, and it actually explains certain things rather than saying science did it, even though science can't prove anything. It actually takes more faith to be an atheist than anything else, but you just really don't want to accept that. Here's the fifth reason, and this is more of a personal reason. The fifth reason I'm not an atheist is because I just don't find it appealing. Like, I always ask atheists this. I tell them, hey, take the whole God thing out of perspective. Like, take God out of it and just imagine heaven or hell. And when I tell them this, I'll be like, would you rather live in a society or a country or maybe even a continent, a planet, whatever you want to call it? Would you rather live there where there's no trouble, there's no sin, there's no crime, there's no rape, there's none of that? Or would you rather just live, or would you rather just stay where you are and stay in reality because, of course, they believe that that's reality? Would you rather live in reality? And then that's when you realize people true colors when it comes to this topic. But and I can get to that in a minute. But I got this idea from my friend because when I was in school, my friend asked my atheist ex-girlfriend. He was like, well, because atheists generally believe that you become nothing when you die. So yeah. Um. So he was like, you know what? I would rather believe, even if it's not true, I would rather believe that I'm going somewhere rather than believe that I'm just gonna die and become nothing. And that really stuck to me for like 3 years because that's true. I would rather know that me, my family, everybody I love is going to a so-called paradise rather than just being in the ground and become nothing and become dust. Now, here's the problem with atheists, right? Atheists would say, hey, do what you got to do while you're alive, right? Be whatever kind of person you could be when you're alive. Like, the highest achievement for a fucking human is probably doing something to get you down in the history books, to get people still talking about you later on in the future, aka Hitler, um, Einstein. Do something to where people could actually be talking about you later on. And that's cool and all, but it's temporary. Like, because eventually the earth is going to be destroyed. Eventually, a generation is going to come where they don't even, like, the majority of people, only the scholars or only the people who are actually interested in this certain type of course is going to remember you. Because, like, if you're not taking a philosophy, you're not going to know all Greek philosophers. Like, I know a couple, but I didn't, but it's not like people aren't going around discussing Greek philosophy and these old dudes who been around like 30, 300 and 300 BC. So ain't nobody talking about them like that. So it's the same thing with you. Eventually, you're gonna get to that point, or unless the Earth hasn't been destroyed already by an asteroid or a fucking colliding planet. Eventually, the Earth is gonna get destroyed. I forget how scientists say it's gonna be destroyed. I don't know, cause I don't really believe it's gonna be destroyed like that. Cause of course I believe Jesus is gonna come down. So that's what I believe. But so I didn't really pay too much attention to it. But I forget how scientists. You probably know it. Leave it in the comments and remind me. But so so either way, it's still pointless. It's like, why the fuck? Like, you're not even gonna be remembered because, like, here's the thing: the people who remember you will eventually die, and then when they die, they're not gonna remember you at all because It's nothing when you die. So it's like it's really pointless for you to do anything in an in an atheistic point of view. So it's kind of pointless, and that's one of the reasons I rather believe that there's somebody who loves me, even though there's nobody, even though everybody in the real world doesn't. I rather believe that there's at least one person who loves me in the world, you know. And so that's more of a personal thing, and you realize that it comes down to two types of atheists. It comes down to the people who look at the evidence and they be like, you know what, I don't think there's a God. You know, those are the ones who think rationally, and then there's the ones who use their personal opinion as their basis. It's like, oh, my aunt died, and therefore, and I prayed to Jesus, therefore I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe in God because he didn't answer my prayers. I find that amazing, to be honest, because it's like God doesn't work that way. But if I worked this way, I wasn't gonna fucking answer your prayers either. You spend your whole entire life doing whatever the fuck you want to do, and then when your aunt dies, that's when you want to pray. It's like, wow, how selfish could you be? Now God isn't really like that, but I was definitely not gonna answer your prayers. That's me if I was in his position. But then you gotta understand that everyone's gonna die. Now, of course, there's gonna be the argument of this of okay, well, if God loves everybody, why don't we just put everybody in heaven? Well, what's the whole point of creating life if there's not gonna be any death? If he's just gonna put everybody in heaven, there's no point in creating life. How is there? I think there's only like two people in history, according to Christian belief, that whoever ascended to heaven without dying. I forgot his name. Fuck. I'll remember it next time, but you know. But yeah, you're gonna have to die. Even if you don't believe in Christianity, death is still a part of life. So I don't understand why people think there's gonna be anything different, really. You know. And here's the thing. There has been people who've been saved by God. So you can't even make that argument. But here's my thing though. To those people who do it by emotion, those are the ones who really are the most disrespectful ones. They're the ones who always got something to say when it comes to. And you ever notice that? Like, I remember back in the day, it used to be Christians, you know, oh, you're going to hell if you don't believe in God. Hey, you can't say that, man. You got to accept my beliefs, right? But now it's like, every time you bring up God, oh, fairy tales. Oh, I thought you were a thinking person. Like when did the position switch? You know, two wrongs don't make a right, buddy. You know, and that's basically it. Yeah, I mean, there's some things I could get into. You know, the discussion of evil. You know, why there's suffering on earth if God is so benevolent. Um, Heaven and hell. There's a lot of things I could discuss on God, and I will probably do it in later videos. But in this video is just mainly me talking about why I'm not an atheist. And of course, not all atheists are like that. Not all atheists are disrespectful. There's a lot of atheists who are pretty nice. Of course, like I said before, I dated an atheist. Um, so it's not really, there's no tolerance for them. I just hate the disrespect. I hate the misconceptions, and I hate how it's the smart worldview, but yet you're using circular logic, you're using contradictions, stuff like that. So yeah, that's basically it. Um, it's a longer video than I, originally hoped, but yeah. Thanks for listening. And if you really want more, tell me, tweet at me. You know my Twitter. My Twitter's down in the description. You know how the thing go. So yeah. Deuces. That's the most cliche ending ever. Fuck. Did you enjoy those videos? No? Well, something is mentally wrong with you. Why don't you click one of these few videos that are popping on the screen right now, and maybe you'll like those ones. Bye.